Hey guys, it's Steph. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new. It's time for another episode of Breaking Down the Shot, and today it's all about composition, framing, and focus. So if you want to learn the building blocks that will take your project to the next level, then stay tuned. Ready? Let's do this. So on today's episode of Breaking Down the Shot, we're actually going to be focusing on two specific areas. We're going to be going over focus and then framing and composition. What is camera shot framing? This is going to be the art or science of placing your subjects within the shot. One of the big things to remember with camera shot framing is that it's not about just pointing your camera and shooting. It's actually about composing your image or building your shot, something that we've been talking about this entire series. So when it comes to composition, you want to make your shots interesting. You don't want them to be stale or static. You don't want them to be flat. You want them to have depth. You want them to be visually pleasing and interesting to look at. So you want your eye to sort of dance across the screen. You want the audience to have multiple things they can look at when they're watching your film, not just one subject speaking. We should be able to pick up and notice other things as well, unless, as the director, it's your specific creative choice to only focus on one thing. And that's why we're going to take a closer look at focus and framing and composition today. So we've just defined camera shot framing. Now we need to define depth of field, which is the other thing we're going to be going over today. Depth of field is just a term used to describe the size of the area within an image where the subject appears sharp. So the area is the field, while the size of the area is the depth of field. To start, we're just going to go over a couple different types of framing. A good place to start is the single shot or the one shot. This is just going to feature one subject in your frame. The shot that I'm actually doing right now, where you see one subject and then you can see the background behind me, this is a one shot. This is a good example of a single shot. Moving right down the line, you have a two shot, which obviously is just two characters or two subjects featured in the frame. So with a two shot, you can have both of those characters on the same level. You can have one more in the foreground and one in the background, but either way, the two shot is going to feature both of these characters. Right after the two shot, we have obviously the three shot. So this is going to be a commonly used shot when it comes to adventure films or films where there's large groups of people that have dialogue, because it's extremely time consuming to set up a single camera shot for every single character in the scene if you have more than three people. An extremely common shot in dialogue scenes is the over-the-shoulder shot. So this is going to have the camera positioned over the shoulder. We kind of reviewed this in our angles video, but we're just revisiting it here because it also has to do with framing and how the subjects are placed in the shot. So over the shoulder obviously is going to have the camera over the shoulder, and you're going to see part of the one subject's shoulder and head, and then it goes past that subject to the other subject, which is the actual focus of the frame. So it's very common in dialogue scenes. It's common when you're going back and forth between two characters, and it just shows a really natural flow of the conversation. And kind of similar to the over-the-shoulder shot is the over-the-hip shot. So that's just going to be the same effect, but on a lower scale. Instead of having the camera up behind my shoulder, it's going to be down, but behind my hip. So the character that's in the foreground, you're just going to see a part of their hip, and then the character in the background is the one that we're focused on, or the one that the camera is focused on. So manipulating focus is another great way to communicate through your camera shots. First, I want to go over the differences between a rack focus and a focus pull, because a lot of people get those two things confused. It's the first AC's job to pull focus, which essentially means keeping the camera steady on a subject and constantly ensuring that that subject stays in focus while the subject moves between various depths within the frame. Rack focus is an intentional shift from one subject to another. So picture you're watching the screen and the focus is on the character that's in the foreground, but then we want to focus on something in the background but in the same shot. We don't want to cut to something in the background. We want to rack focus or shift the focus from one subject to another. So the way you want to kind of differentiate between focus pull and rack focus is a focus pull is passive while rack focus is aggressive. So with shallow focus, your subject is going to be in very crisp focus, while the background and even the foreground are blurred. This is a technique that's typically captured with a telephoto lens, something that we went over in the Raid My Equipment Closet video, and I kind of demonstrated the difference between a wide angle, which is what I'm shooting on now, and a telephoto lens, which is going to give you a much closer angle, but it's also going to help you achieve that shallow focus, which is going to blur your background. This shot limits your depth of field to create an emphasis on your subject. It's very cinematic and dramatic, so if you're looking for that type of shot, I would suggest using a shallow depth of field. So with deep focus, everything is in focus. Nothing is set apart from the background. You can clearly see everything. There's nothing that's blurred. Deep focus is good for big scenery shots, for big wide shots. These are shots where the director really wants the audience to kind of pick up on everything and not just like hone in or focus on one specific thing in the frame. With soft focus, nothing is 100% sharp focused. So with this type of shot, everything is going to have a slight blur, a slight glow. This is a really good focus for memories, for dreams, for like out-of-body experiences. So a good example of soft focus is the Lord of the Rings franchise. Peter Jackson uses this focus technique multiple times throughout. Focus can help guide the attention of your audience to a specific focus in your movie that they might miss otherwise. This truly allows directors to have creative control and show audiences exactly what they need to see in order to understand the message that's being delivered to them. Framing, on the other hand, is going to ensure that each of your shots has proper depth. Knowing how to block your characters around your camera and figure out all of these positionings is just going to help your shots look more beautiful and interesting and less static and stagnant and just boring. Using creativity when composing your shots is a really great way to add overall production value and improve the quality of your project. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I really hope you learned something new about composition, framing, and focus, and how you can use all of those elements together to create the best possible shot for your project. In the next episode of Breaking Down the Shot, we're going over camera movement, so stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more film, acting, and entertainment related videos every single week. All right, I'll see you in the next one. Bye guys.